The sun had barely cleared the eastern ridge when Samuel Thornton swung into the saddle. His chestnut mare, Callie, snorted softly, steam curling from her nostrils in the crisp Montana morning. At his heel trotted Dusty, the black and white border collie who had been his shadow for 8 years. She moved with the easy purpose of a dog who knew every inch of the 1,200 acres they called home. Samuel, Sam to the few neighbors who bothered to ride over, didn't talk much. Words felt unnecessary when the land spoke so plainly. Wind through the ponderosas, the low bawl of cattle in the distance, the creak of leather and hoof on frozen earth. He and Dusty communicated without sound. A tilt of his head, a soft whistle, the way her ears flicked when she spotted something he hadn't yet seen. She never disobeyed, not once in all those years. They were heading to the north pasture to check the fence line after last week's windstorm. A section had come down near the creek. He needed to mend it before the herd found the gap. The ride was routine, the kind of quiet work that kept loneliness at bay without ever quite banishing it. Half a mile from the homestead, Dusty slowed, then stopped. Sam reined Callie in, puzzled. "Come on, girl." Dusty didn't budge. Her front legs planted, tail low but stiff, gaze locked on a thick stand of chokecherry bushes 50 yards ahead where the trail curved around a low rise. Her ears were forward, body rigid. Not the posture of a dog scenting rabbits or coyotes. This was something else, alert, protective, almost reverent. Sam swung down, boots crunching frost. "Dusty, heel." She glanced at him once, eyes pleading in that way only a collie can manage, then turned back to the bushes. A low whine escaped her throat. He felt the first prickle of unease. Dusty had never refused a command, not when he pulled porcupine quills from her muzzle, not when he asked her to leave a fresh calf alone so the mother could bond, not even when lightning cracked overhead and every other animal on the place bolted for cover. She always trusted him. Sam loosened the rifle in its scabbard, not because he expected trouble, but because the high country taught you to respect the unknown. He walked forward slowly, hand resting on the horn of his saddle as Callie followed at a loose lead. "Dusty, easy." The dog took one careful step, then another, nose low. She led him off the trail toward the chokecherries. The bushes were dense, their bare branches laced with last summer's dried berries. Something had pushed through them recently, broken twigs, disturbed snow. Sam's pulse picked up. Bear? Cougar? A wounded elk could be dangerous if cornered. He scanned the ground for tracks. Nothing clear. Too much needle litter and frozen crust. Dusty stopped again, right at the edge of the thicket. She lowered herself to her belly, chin on paws, staring into the shadows. Another soft whine. Sam crouched beside her, peering through the tangle. At first he saw only darkness and branches, then movement, small, trembling. A shape resolved itself. A girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. Dirty blonde hair matted with pine needles, face streaked with dirt and tears, wearing a thin pink coat far too light for February, and jeans soaked through at the knees. Her small hands clutched a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. She was curled against the base of a chokecherry trunk, shivering so violently the branches above her quivered. Sam's breath caught. "Hey there," he said low and steady, the way he talked to skittish calves. "You're safe now. My name is Sam. This is Dusty." The girl's eyes, wide, blue, terrified, flicked from him to the dog. Dusty hadn't moved an inch. She lay flat, tail giving the tiniest wag, as if saying, "See, I told you I'd bring help." The girl didn't speak, just stared. Sam eased closer, slow as sunrise. "You hurt anywhere?" A tiny headshake. "You lost?" A nod, small and miserable. He glanced around. No footprints leading in, no sign of adults. The nearest paved road was 12 miles east. The nearest ranch, Old Man Hargrove's, was even farther. How did she get here? He shrugged out of his heavy Carhartt coat. It would swallow her, but it was wool-lined and warm. "Here, put this on before you freeze solid." She hesitated, then reached out trembling hands. The coat engulfed her like a blanket. She pulled it tight, burying her face in the collar that still smelled of wood smoke and horse. Dusty crept forward on her belly until her nose touched her knee. The child flinched, then slowly extended her hand. Dusty licked it once gently. The child let out a shaky breath, fingers sinking into the thick ruff around Dusty's neck. Sam sat back on his heels. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," she whispered, first word she spoken. "Lily, pretty name. How'd you end up way out here?" She swallowed. "I was at Grandma's, in the yard. I followed a bunny. It hopped away. I kept going. Then I couldn't find the house. It got dark. I walked and walked. I was scared of the noises." Sam's stomach twisted. Grandma's. That means she belongs to someone over on the county road, probably the new folks who'd bought the old Miller place last fall. City people, he'd heard. They had a little girl. He'd seen her once from a distance, swinging on the porch. "You walked all night?" She nodded, eyes filling again. "My feet hurt. The bunny disappeared. I hid here when I heard something big in the trees." Probably a deer, but to a small child in the dark, everything sounded big. Sam looked at Dusty. The collie had refused to leave the spot, refusing to come when called, because she knew, somehow she knew there was a child in those bushes, cold and alone. She had stood guard until help arrived, in this case, him. He reached down and scratched behind Dusty's ears. "Good girl," he murmured. "Real good." Lily watched him, then leaned against Dusty's side. The dog didn't move, just let the weight settle against her ribs like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sam stood. "We need to get you home, Lily. Your grandma's worried sick, I reckon. Can you ride with me?" She looked up at Callie, who had wandered over to lip at some frozen grass. The mare was gentle, bomb-proof. "Okay." He lifted her, light as a bird, and settled her in front of him in the saddle. She clutched the stuffed rabbit and the edge of his coat. Dusty trotted alongside, tail high now, job done. The ride back took 40 minutes. Lily didn't talk much, just occasional soft questions. "Does Dusty bite?" "No, ma'am, unless I tell her to." "What does her name mean?" "Dusty-colored. When she's dirty, I guess. Mostly she's just Dusty." By the time they reached the county road, sirens wailed in the distance. A sheriff's cruiser and 2 pickups were parked at the Miller driveway. People milled around. Deputies, neighbors, a frantic older woman in a bathrobe hugging herself. When Sam rode up with Lily in his arms, the woman, Grandma, let out a cry that cut through the cold air like a knife. She ran forward as Sam eased Lily down. The girl stumbled into her grandmother's embrace, sobbing now that safety had arrived. The grandmother looked over Lily's head at Sam. Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you. Oh, God, thank you." Sam touched his hat brim. "Wasn't me. Was Dusty." Everyone looked at the collie, who sat politely at Sam's heel, tongue lolling, looking pleased with herself. The sheriff stepped forward, notebook out. "How'd you find her?" Sam shrugged. "Dusty wouldn't move, stood there staring at some bushes till I went to see why. She was curled up inside." The grandmother knelt, arms still around Lily. "You saved my baby girl." Dusty tilted her head, then padded forward and licked Lily's hand again. The child giggled through tears, the first happy sound she had made. Word spread fast in ranch country. By evening, trucks were pulling into Sam's yard with casseroles, coffee, offers to help with fence work. People he barely knew clapped him on the back, scratched Dusty's head, called her a hero. Sam didn't like the attention. He accepted the food, thanked them quietly, and went back to chores. But that night, after the last visitor left, he sat on the porch steps with Dusty beside him. Stars glittered overhead, sharp as ice shards. "You knew, didn't you?" he said softly. Dusty thumped her tail once. He looked out across the dark pastures. For 5 years he'd lived alone, convinced solitude was easier, less hurt, less risk. But today a dog refused an order, and because of it, a child was safe, a family was whole. He rested his hand on Dusty's warm back. "Guess we're not as alone as I thought." The next morning he saddled Callie again. Dusty bounded ahead as usual, but when they reached the north pasture, she paused at the chokecherry thicket. She looked back at Sam, tail wagging. He smiled, small, rare. "Yeah, girl, I see it too." They rode on. Weeks passed. Spring thawed the creeks. Calves dropped. One afternoon, a small blue pickup rattled up the long driveway. Lily climbed out, holding her grandmother's hand. She carried a package wrapped in butcher paper. Sam met them on the porch. Lily stepped forward, shy but determined. "This is for Dusty." He unwrapped it. A new leather collar, hand-tooled, with a brass plate engraved, "Dusty, hero of the chokecherries." Sam's throat tightened. She'll wear it proud. Lily knelt and hugged Dusty around the neck. The collie tolerated it, then licked her face until the girl squealed with laughter. Grandma watched, eyes soft.